Recently, I had a comment that was posted on one of my YouTube videos that it was kind of disappointed that I didn't do more videos. And the real reason is I really haven't had time. I probably will get back to them soon, but right now, uh, I've got other things in my life that uh, I'm more interested in. But I did come across the fact that I had made a lot of Facebook Live videos, and there was a lot of good information in them that some of it wasn't in the videos that I had currently listed. So what I decided to do was list these to my YouTube channel. And I hope you enjoy them. I hope you find more knowledge in them. And also, if you're not a subscriber, well, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you'll be notified. You select all. And if you like them, give them a gig. Wait for everyone to get tied on. I'm going to not sit around here and just wait. We'll talk some about what I'm going to address next week. Next week we're going to talk about. I said last week I had about 4 ounces of silver, and well, I say last week, the last live stream I did before I decided to take me a little break and drive around and hunt a few rocks. But I had planned to go ahead and do some casting, show some casting live, which that might be a fun thing in itself. But I'm going to wait till next week, and I'm going to talk about 2 types of casting next week. One is going to be bean casting, which I'm just going to use some black beans for this one. It's not going to be anything complicated. We'll soak these and get them good and saturated. And I'm going to use these small beans for better detail. You can see how that comes out. And if I can round up some broom corn, I'm going to do some broom straw casting. So that'll be what we'll be looking at next week. And hopefully I won't put it off again. But this week we're going to talk about different types of material. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. I'm going to round up just 1 or 2 more pieces. Okay. You got a few of you here, a couple. Hopefully it won't be just a few more minutes and we'll get started on this project. If there's anything that you'd like to see, now I'm going to tell you, I'm not proficient in a lot of things. Some things I know a little bit about, but a lot of things I don't. We're going to get started, and as most of you know, I don't have that great of internet, so a lot of times I don't get a stream back. But so I don't necessarily know if you're commenting or not. In fact, I don't even get an accurate reading on how many people's viewing it. I can see some of them, but I can't see them all. So maybe I'll get comments today. Maybe I won't. If not, I'll take care of them afterwards. I'll try to touch on everything. What I'm intending to do today is discuss lapidary material and how to select and buy it, because a lot of times in the club here, I have people come up and they want me to make a cabochon out of some material that they've purchased, and I hate to tell them. I say, well, the material's not good enough grade. It's not lapidary grade material. I mean, it's not going to take a good shine or something like that. So anyway, that's what we're going to kind of address, because you might see that perfect piece. You might not make cabochons, but you might see what you think's that perfect piece, and you want to buy it and get someone else to make a cabochon for you. So you'll know what to look for, or you might just want to go out rock hunting. I know I really find a lot of enjoyment getting out there and hunting for rocks.
It's real relaxing and everything. So if you know a little bit about it, you'll know more of what to look for. And the first thing I'm going to suggest, if you're going to look for a certain type of material, maybe it's something you like and you're going to try to collect it yourself, then take and learn a little bit about it. Whether it's going to a rock shop, and you'll find if you buy a little piece of rock, especially, and talk a little bit about what you're into and everything else with the owner, they're more than happy to help you. A lot of times they'll give you locations and stuff. Some of them aren't, especially if you get in some of the tourist type rock shops. But most of them they're real helpful. And I've taken and I've met a lot of them, and in the biggest majority of the cases, like I say, unless it's a tourist type shop, and then a lot of them, they're still, if they're knowledgeable, they're real helpful. But the first thing is, like I say, you need to know your material. And some materials they're really hard to find a good grade material when you get out hunting. I went to some locations this past few weeks, and actually I'd cut my trip short a couple of weeks, which is good because I wouldn't be here for this video here. But because there's so many locations now that are closed, or the access to them is restricted where you can't get to them anymore, and that was one that I'm going to talk about, which was I have a piece of it sitting here somewhere. It's this material here. You see it regular. It's Ricolite serpentine, and the thing about it is this piece here. Let me switch views here. We'll go to another camera. But this piece here is one that I couldn't find any. I ended up buying a piece, and it's good. Some of it's got some fractures, but it's got plenty of area to work around. But that's one of the things I want to talk about as far as fractures, because a lot of times when it's dry, you can see certain things, and don't take it for granted that, especially because some of the material is banded like this, that it's good and solid all the way across, and just go mark you a place out for a cabochon and start to cut it, because you're going to be disappointed a lot of times, because we can take these pieces. Now, this piece I can flex and it's good and solid. It's nothing wrong with it. But I can take some more from this same piece, like this one here. Well, I thought I could. Okay, and snap it off. Now you say, well, why put that pressure there and intentionally snap it off? But when you're doing lapidary work and you're grinding on this, you don't want this to have a possibility of it starts hammering on a wheel and then it goes ahead and it breaks apart there. You want to go ahead and fracture it ahead of time, and you want to make sure that fracture is good, because sometimes these fractures run a long direction across there, and so they might not pop off easy, and then about the time you think that you've got it pops. It takes and pops a section off it, and you can see, just like here on this one, there's a flat area here, and you can see this line going up in here. This is a fracture line going in, and say, I don't want you to worry too much about fractures, but I want you to understand when you're buying slabs, because most of you are going to be buying slabs. You want to know what percentage of area you have to work with, because the price of a slab is it's going to vary, and a lot of times it varies by the quality. But a lot of dealers don't sell it so much by the quality; they sell it by the uh, by the slab, and it might not necessarily be good quality stuff. I've seen slabs for $10 that of one material that were good. I've seen some for 20 of the same material that aren't. I have this one that's been laying here. This is a nice piece of Tiffany, and I really like it. Now it does have some pits and stuff, but the colors in it and the beauty of it is such that even though it does have these imperfections, there's some areas to work around, and it would come up with a beautiful stone. Even though it has these problems. But realize when you buy a piece of material, now you don't want to give top dollar for something that's got a lot of holes in it, unless you're buying blizzardite or something like that, where it's a characteristic of it to have those holes. And that's another thing. You need to know on your material what's characteristic of it. Now, this is a material here, bird's eye rhyolite. Now, I like bird's eye rhyolite, but it's really hard to find good grade bird's eye rhyolite. And even when you're buying rough, if you look the way that it fractures, if it looks like it's fractured all kind of different directions, it's not like something where it fractured off and it's just a little bit fractured off. You can tell where it breaks. So it's all different directions on it. And the thing about this is when you see that, now this material here, this is just real crumbly. I mean, you couldn't make a cab out of this. Now, and I hate to think that I bought some of this, but you sometimes you just start thinking, well, I'm going to find a good piece. I'm going to find a good piece. But all these little hairline cracks in here on this piece are going to be problematic. And so if you're going to buy material, you don't want to buy material that's you're not going to get any use out of. I mean, this here, there's very, very little, and I didn't buy a lot of this. I bought some because I really liked the way it looked, but I spent more time looking at how great it looked instead of looking at the quality of the material that I had. Now, there's other material. Now, this coprolite, and this looks like it has fractures all up in it. But if you notice the edges, and like I say, that characteristic where it's not broke all over, that's the first sign that it's good and solid. And this piece here, it would make some excellent cabs as far as, and there's no problem with any fractures in it. All these are little crevices, which is common with coprolite. See this? Now, you do have some that doesn't form as well, but if you don't feel anything on here, don't worry about that there's going to be anything on there. That's one of those materials. Now this is coprolite too, and I picked this up this last winter, and I bought every slab he had because. But now someone told me your herbivores are the ones that have the colorful fossilized poop. Now I'm not going to say whether that's true or not. Now, but I'm going to talk about the quality of this piece. Now it's rare that you get coprolite that actually forms your druzzy quartz in the crevices. And I've made a few cabs out of one of these pieces, and it makes some beautiful stuff. And it will crack if you follow this crevice far enough, and because when you have druzzy quartz, a lot of times it's actually the crystal points are meeting instead of the material forming agate right across that all the way. So you have to watch how you do this. Now, if you was going to make a cab out of it, you'd want to make sure you had a solid connecting part in there so your cab's going to be solid. But you take and always watch for that. And most slabs, when you see them, they're wet, and you won't see a lot of this stuff. And that's a that's a problem sometimes whenever you're collecting material, or whenever you're buying material. I used to sell slabs on the Facebook groups, auction them off, and I got to where I wouldn't, because I was particular about when I sold someone a slab, I wanted them to have a good slab, and you can't always tell if a fracture is going to be. It's one thing if somebody's picking it out of a bunch of slabs, but it's another thing when they see a picture and they might not actually see a fracture that's there, and it might not be one that's going to give them a problem, but it could be. So I found I was selling all my best material, and I was keeping the stuff that wasn't so good. So I said, well, I'll stop that. Now, here's another material a lot of you is familiar with. Now, lapis. Now you can see these cracks whether it's wet or not in this lapis, but how they run this way. This piece here would be really hard to cab, because in order to cab it, you'd have to have thin cab, and you would have to cut it this way to go between the cracks, because if you cut it this way, it's going to separate all the way across. If you cut it this way, it's going to separate. So when you're buying material, and you know they start saying that's so much a gram or something, don't just think that it's one price for any type of material that's like that, because that's not the case. Now this piece here, this would be a nice piece here. It has maybe just a touch too much pyrite in it, so but in places, but it has a lot of your blue. This piece here, you can see it might have, it's got a fracture runs across here. Now, when you're buying a slab, and I don't know if I've got one here that I can actually let you see. We'll move on to this other one. But this piece here it has little hairline fractures. Now this is good and solid. It would cab up, but it has these hairline fractures. But the main reason why I got this piece to show you, now this is one that we collect here in Texas. This is lanite. Comes down by Llano. That's why it's called lanite, down in Mason County, Texas. This has blue quartz in it. Now, I'm going to show you these with them dry. These are both lanite. They're both lanite, but you see how dark this is, even on the edges. You see how light this is on the edges. This is a surface collected piece. It's a lot softer material because it's over time, and it had, water kind of seeps into it and then it freezes. We don't get a whole lot of deep hard freezes like they do up north that destroys a lot of the agate, but you do have the water percolating, dissolving it, and then the temperature changes and stuff, and you can see the difference in the shade here where the outside surface was. But that's why I say know the difference in the material. This here is a piece that was quarried. This wasn't just on the surface. So it's a lot darker. It's a lot harder. And now we can wet these down. You might be looking for this look here, but you're not going to get as good a polish on this as you are this. But lanite is known for the blue quartz. Let's say it's only found in that one place. It's actually a granite, but it's like I say, we call it lanite. But two, you can take and wet this, and you can watch how it dries, and you can actually see the water kind of soak into the material when it's soft like that. And that's another thing that you kind of got to look for when you're going to purchase material. Now, when you're out in the field, you're not going to be paying for. Well, I say you aren't. Now, I do some hunts in West Texas and stuff where we hunt on Walker Ranch, and we pay so much a day, but we don't pay per pound. Now, there are some down there that you pay so much for the first bucket, and then so much a pound for, and everything else. When you're paying per pound for material, you want to be more selective when you're collecting it. But if you're just out on BLM land or forestry land somewhere, and you're collecting, you want to know what your limits are for one now, because most of it, the BLM, you're allowed to collect 250 pounds a year. I know some people collect a lot more. On the petrified wood, you're limited to 25 pounds. So you need to know your limits when you're out there, but know what your material is going to look for. If you're going out somewhere and you're looking for a piece of Tiffany stone, it's not going to look like this. It's going to look like this. Now, you might see a piece or something and know that it's like that. It might be chipped off and you'll see some other color, but it's going to look like, it's going to be white. Chances it's going to be white on the side unless it's been busted up already, because a lot of times Tiffany is in little nodules. So don't expect to go out there. That's why I say it's good to know what the material is that you're looking for, because otherwise you're not going to find it. But it's also good to know the material if you're going to go buy it, because you want to know that someone's not selling you something that is not what you want to purchase. Let me get another one here. Yeah, I wanted to get a dry one and bring it in, and I didn't. Now, this here, this is rhodonite. Now, rhodonite, whenever you go to a rock shop or something, usually this is the way it looks. And you can't just take it and say, well, this is going to be good material. Now, this is pink inside. This was collected up in Colorado on this last piece. It's on this last strip, a little piece. But rhodonite can be so many different qualities, and it can vary in a piece. Be easier if I had good reception. I could go all over. Now, if you notice, we wet these down. Of course, the color comes out. But this is also a piece I collected. Now you can see there's kind of similarities, but you see all this other area. And when you buy rhodonite and it's not a slab, or you got collecting rhodonite, the only way that you can collect rhodonite is you take and you chip off a piece of it and you see if you see a good pink, because and you need to chip off several places, because this is rhodonite too. A little rhodonite there. You've got a little bit of pale color here and pale color here, but this was collected in the same area, and where the piece was chipped off, it showed a nice pink, but that was probably the only nice pink place on this whole rock. Now, that sliced up a lot of stuff that probably shouldn't be sliced. Of course, I tumble a lot of rocks, and this will end up probably being tumbled. But I want you to be aware that when you start buying material, you want to know what grade of material you have. I bought some, and I don't buy a lot of rocks on the internet. I bought some from some Facebook people that sell a lot of rocks, and I bought some Gary Green, and they were both real helpful about the material, taking and showing me all different views of it, and wet and dry and stuff like that. But I do all mine by handling the material. And one batch I got from a regular seller. I'm not going to mention his name because I might talk bad about someone, but you'll never know who it is. It was some really poor quality stuff. I couldn't believe he was selling it because he was, he's one of the major sellers on there. But anyway, that's the reason why I don't, because you might be new to this person. Now, if you buy a lot of material from them, they might be more selective and give you something good. But I wouldn't even have been selling the material he had. It'd been some that I'd give away. In fact, a lot of it probably ended up in a rock garden. I sure wouldn't have sold it to someone that, unless they were wanting something for a specimen, just for the colors and stuff. Now this is rhodonite too. Now this other rhodonite all came up around Eureka area over east of Silverton. Now this is from California. It's, as you can see, it's different. A lot of times you'll get less of the, I'm guessing this is magnesium, that's the black, and you'll have more of the pink. And most of this, that's the way it was. Now this stuff here tends to want to fracture some on these black lines, and you can see where this had fractured off. But you never know what it's going to be like inside, and that's the only thing is you can guess. I know I bought some rhodochrosite, stalactite stuff from, I think it's Argentina, where it comes from, and it was always a beautiful red, and I think we'll make some beautiful cabs, and I have made a few out of it, but it wasn't formed good in the back and the inside, and it was actually had all the black areas of the rings there, and they don't polish as well, and it just doesn't look that well to me for what I was wanting. So be aware of the material, and I wouldn't have thought that it would have been that way, just by looking at it, because it was nice colored everywhere except once I started getting down inside of it. But do understand that if the main reason I'm telling you it's like this on the outside is because if you go to hunt rhodonite, you're going to see black rocks. You're going to have to take your and I don't recommend breaking a lot of rocks unless you absolutely have to. And on this material, you're going to absolutely have to. But don't just knock off one corner to see. Knock off several corners to see if it goes through, so you don't end up with bringing back a lot of material like this. I mean, it's just going to be what you haul back, and if you can haul it, rhodonite's heavy. It doesn't take much to get a couple 100 pounds of it. And there's a lot of old mines down there that still have a lot of this in their piles where they've thrown out their waste from the mining. But anyway, that's that. And now back on this, like I say, lapis is one of those that it depends on the material for the price. Don't just go up and say, well, lapis costing this much, and you're going to pay that much. A lot of times it's better to even pay the price on, they've got a lot of them that's polished up for a specimen to sit on the shelf or something, a nice pretty one. Sometimes it's better just to buy that piece and cut it up into cabs than to buy some of the others. Now, I didn't purchase any of these. I don't know. I purchased this one, but I didn't purchase these. I got them in a collection, but and it's not going to be much that I could use unless I decided to break it up and do some inlays or something, because it's really hard to follow your cracks, and you just hope that you break it apart and it would break at the cracks and you'd have thin layers. But be aware your price is going to be subject to quality. So same thing with this. Now this is one that I just halfway polished up. I put it in my display cabinet. I like a piece here and there, but this does have some fractures in it. I wouldn't cab it because it of the fractures that's in there. But as far as for a good piece to show someone to get an idea of what they're looking at, that this was what it was good for. You know, I just sliced it up. We do an auction at our yearly show, and a lot of times I'll fix up some cabs for there. Now this material, reason why I have this is from Lavic Lake. Now Lavic Lake has some nice looking material, but there's so much hematite in here, and you'll end up with little pits and stuff where it's not solid and come out. It comes out better sometimes when it's tumbled. I'll start a cab and I won't like it, and I'll throw it in my tumble pile. It'll come out and it'll look pretty decent. I mean, it's not something that I would put in jewelry, but I know a lot of people snatch them up because they like them and they'll wire wrap them or something for their sale. But be aware of materials that have hematite, because that's going to affect whether you can use it for lapidary or not. Now this could be worked. You could make a nice cabochon, but it does have different fractures. It has that characteristic where it's kind of got real uneven breaks all the way around, and whenever it does like that, normally and this is kind of a thick slab, but normally it'll break apart. It's normally crumbly material. So if you see that, you don't have to take and break it there in front of the dealer. Now, this some material, it's dry. You can see it looks like it's got a fracture goes across it. You know, it could be something else, but it's most likely a fracture. And I'd break this, but I'm going to polish this up. It'll make a nice, pretty display piece. It's nice and pretty. I've made a few cabs because I can work around them, and that's one thing I want to stress. All your cabs are not big cabs. A lot of times you'll make a little cab. So if you have a pattern that's going to come out in there and you see it, you know, this here almost looks like a forest with trees in it and branches going up. And so, but if you're going to make a cab and you see a pattern, see if it looks like that you're going to be able to use that material to do that. If you're not, even doesn't matter how pretty it is, if it's going to bust up like some of these others, you know, it's not usable material. So you might as well just put it to the side. Now this is a Polish flint, which is a really nice material. I probably don't make enough cabs out of it because you can't capture it now. Right now you can see the forms and stuff, but with this material, and they do have different grades of it too. So, but this is a good top grade, and you can see how when it broke at its fracture, how flat and smooth it is where it's broke, and that'll tell you that it's hard. But this actually looks like it's flowing when it's polished up. It's really neat material. But I have so many that I don't never get a cab. Now, we'll talk about some of the more expensive material. Now, this is cola wood, and this one is just one I stick in my cabinet. In fact, I didn't even put the little bit of polish that's on there. I had got this from someone that got it from a dealer, and I bought it from them. A few slabs, and I have some that I cut up, but I haven't cut any in a while. But now this slab here, this would probably be a couple $100 slab. It is a fairly large slab, but that just because cola wood's expensive doesn't mean that every piece of it is going to be uh, worth the same price. Because, like I say, it depends on the fractures and everything else. Now, this I have one that has some nice blues in it, but I find that characteristic of some of the blues that always wants to take and fracture across that. I know I have a nice cab that I made that looks like a nice mountain scene with a lake and stuff, but it's not the shape it originally started out because it did pop off from that piece. Yeah. and it's called cola wood because it has Criscola. Now this is a good quality piece of Criscola, and I don't like to work this. This one here, it just sets out there. I might even polish it up more, but you can see how it's chipped out here where it's fractured. I always find that when I'm working this, it doesn't take much for it to want to chip off. And so I never end up, it's a beautiful color, but I never end up without having a lot of frustration, especially if I'm wanting a cab a certain size. So a lot of times you'll want to go with something that's not as good a grade. Now some of you is familiar with this. This is Crisco in here too, but it has more matrix with it, so it's not as much of a color, but of course this here is Sonoran Sunrise, and but when you have the Criscola that's in the matrix like this, it's a whole lot easier to work. And depending on how good you are with working material, you want to take that in consideration. Well, I can tell you, if I have any comments at all, I don't see them. One day I might break down and get a better internet, but for right now, my hotspot, that's going to do it. Okay. I think I've covered a bunch of it. Now, if there was any questions on anything that we're going over, I have to address them after, whenever I look and see if anyone commented on the feed. If, like I always say, if there's something that you want to know about, I didn't hit real heavy on pits and different things like that, but know that if there's pits in there, those are things that's going to give you problems. The materials really, it really needs to be a super nice piece of material if it's going to be used and it has pits. Some material that's characteristic, it's going to have some. A lot of it, like I say, blizzardite has got so many holes and druzy cavities and stuff. So like I say, that's characteristic. But if it's not characteristic for a piece, and it's not, if you're thinking, I haul a lot of stuff home when I'm out collecting, it looks like it might be good. You know, I might see some pits and porosity on one end of it, and the other end might look good, so I'll go ahead and haul it home. But I've got to where I haul less and less of it home because normally it's hard to get even one good piece out of it. I have a lot of slabs that are poor quality, you know, and some people pick over them for whatever reason. But if you're looking for something to spend your time to make a cabochon or to get somebody to make a cabochon, don't bother picking up those rocks. If it looks like it's fractured, over in Utah where we do a lot of hunting, you have real cold winter temperatures, you know, you have real high summer temperatures, you get a lot of fracturing in the material. And most of the material I collect is surface collecting. So if it looks like it's fractured, unless it's going to make a good yard rock for somebody or something like that, uh, don't don't bring it home thinking you're going to make something out of it for lapidary. It always seems like the fractures always interfere in where you want to make the cab. The you can't get enough of a pattern in it uh, to matter, or you do like I have done on a couple of occasions, is you tear up a saw blade because you think you've got it chucked up good to where the fractures won't affect it, but you end up the piece comes apart and uh, bends your blade. So always be aware of that. Okay, I'm gonna cut this off with that, and like I say, I'll address any questions if there were any. If there's something you'd like to see, just comment on the feed. Let me know, and I'll try to do it next Sunday. Like I say, I'm going to try to do some bean casting and some broom straw casting. So if I can get my broom corn straw rounded up and everything, then we'll do that. Otherwise, it'll just be bean casting. But thanks for your time, and I hope that you learned something.
Big thumbs up. I hope you enjoy.